Um, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sowmya, and I'm a psychologist. I have been on the face of this earth for 40 years now, and I have seen a little bit of life personally. Professionally, I have been very fortunate and privileged to witness people's life very intimately and get to know and understand their personal journeys. Today, what I'm sharing with you is both certain theoretical aspects of psychology that I have found very useful when applied to real life, and also certain suggestions that I have come to understand. I think I can actually call these suggestions wisdom, understanding how uh, watching people's behavior has helped me understand life in general. But again, there is a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is I am a human being. I might have my qualifications, I might have my training, but I'm a human being. Whatever you hear from here in this lecture, kindly think about it. If you want, Google more of it, apply it little by little, look for how it probably changes your life in a certain way, and only then go ahead and endorse it. In excitement sometimes, or in sometimes sarcasm, we don't take in wisdom. So be speculative, be open to an idea, and please take it one step at a time. Think about the idea. If it makes sense to you, apply it a little, see if it changes. Otherwise, you can go back to how you have lived your life. I wish you all the best. So let's start from this idea of anti-fragility. The term itself I will introduce to you in some time. I would like to begin with this quote. I did my BA, and in my literature class, my teacher introduced me to this literature quotation from Milton's Paradise Lost. And here, the character who has been defeated gloriously, the character has experienced a glorious defeat, and in spite of that defeat, the character speaks up and says, what reinforcement we may gain from hope, if not, what resolution from despair. And this thought has stuck with me the rest of my life. This thought has helped me understand that when nothing comes to your help, when nothing flows your way, please remember you have you, and you can be your best friend. Today, as a psychologist and as a fellow human being, I just want to introduce you to a few simple ideas that psychology has researched as a science that you can use to be that best friend for yourself when you realize that you're probably all by yourself and up against a glorious defeat. Um, I would like to begin with a small story. Many times we talk about stress as a negative phenomena in our life. We like to run away from stress, we want to avoid stress, we want to resolve stress, we want to de-stress, anything but deal, like anything but appreciate stress. This particular story will help you understand that stress may not be the enemy. In fact, stress can be a very good ally. So I would like to begin with the story of the moth and the cocoon. You can see that small little picture that I've put on the slide. Um, it is supposed to be of that of a moth and a cocoon. I couldn't find a moth, so that's actually a butterfly. A moth is apparently white in color. So imagine a moth is escaping the cocoon like you see in the picture. And this entire process is not very peaceful, it's not very smooth. Apparently, it's a lot of struggle for the tiny little insect inside the cocoon to break free, to push through the walls, fiber by fiber, and come out of it. This entire struggle was witnessed by a person. A person was watching the small little insect really fighting against its own created cocoon. After some time, the person felt that maybe I can be of help. Perhaps I can make this person's life a little easier, this moth's life a little easier. And the person goes in and makes a small tear in the cocoon so the moth can come out easily. The person thinks his or her job is done, that it has helped, he or she has helped a fellow human being to live better, and they leave the place. After some time, the person comes back to see what has happened to the moth in the cocoon, and a completely different story is waiting. And the story is the person sees the moth getting eaten away by ants and getting carried away. What had happened was, while the person eased the moth from the cocoon by tearing it, when the moth finally fell out, it wasn't strong enough to fly away. Its wings were not strong enough to carry its body. Apparently, the struggle with the cocoon's walls was supposed to give strength to the moth, so that once it breaks free from the cocoon, it was strong enough to take its body weight and fly off from there. So, what had happened to it was weak, it couldn't carry itself, and it fell. It fell as a prey to other smaller insects, the way nature takes care of things. You might want to dismiss it as a story, or you might want to consider a small point that I'm trying to make here. And the point is, many a times, the stressful situations in our life are preparatory in nature. That's why sometimes we say life is the best teacher. It teaches us about what is going to come next and how do we prepare for it. So, this entire presentation is about few ideas that I want to introduce you to. And you can pick and choose these ideas as you want, with the approach that we are not saying we want stress-free lives, though that is one way of looking at it. But we are saying that stress is a teacher that is trying to tell us what can you learn from this incident. So the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is the quality of stress that we are experiencing. On your slide, you will understand stress in psychology is divided or categorized in different ways. I have given you one way. And that one way is stress can be understood as eustress, positive stress, tolerable stress, and toxic stress. You have to identify what you're experiencing is what quality of stress. It's very necessary to do that. It's necessary because it will tell you what are you up against. Are you up against something that you can challenge and overcome, or are you up against something that you shouldn't be facing and you need more help? So positive stress are usually events of life that are achievement oriented and which are considered to be, normative, or in a common person's language, normal. Going into higher education, getting married, having a romantic life, having children, moving into a different place, getting a job, going to interviews. All these are challenging experiences, but they are considered to be normative or expected because they are achievement oriented. Once you reach that destination, you feel good about yourself, right? So that is positive stress or eustress. The next is a little challenging. It is called tolerable stress. These stresses may not necessarily be expected but intentionally picked. Like everybody would want to do a master's, but maybe you are a person who wants to get into a different profession, or you are a person who wants to go higher above masters, or you are a person who wants to travel into a different discipline altogether. So when you do this, you are getting into territory that you are not familiar with. But again, when you reach these territories, you experience joy, and therefore it's also positive stress. But sometimes in tolerable stress also comes the component of challenging circumstances, what are not expected, like the pandemic, like job losses, like breakups in romantic relationship. So these circumstances can really jolt you. Sometimes it can be more than just challenging. It can almost become traumatic, like divorces, like accidents, like loss of a person whom you really love. So when this happens, and this happens to a point that it breaks you, this is when you have to reach out for professional help. Now, self help, home remedies, listening to a lecture may not help. You have to sit down with someone and get expert help. So, whatever it is that is stressing you out, ask yourself, is it achievement oriented positive stress? Is it intentionally picked positive stress? Is it simply a challenging circumstance? I have two young children, 5 and 7, and it can be excruciatingly painful to simply get them ready to school. It's my challenging circumstance, but it's not toxic, it's not traumatic. But if I have a child with special abilities, if I have a family which is not supportive of me working in spite of being married and having children, then maybe I'm experiencing traumatic stress or toxic stress, in which case I will need expert help. So please identify. We all love to be Superman, Superwoman, Wonder Woman, but please remember we are human first. Super later. You need a large production house like Marvel Comics to give us superpowers, but we are first human beings. So understand the nature of the stress. From here, I would like to help you understand why I chose the word anti fragile. Because whenever I talk about strength with people as a psychologist, I often get replies like, strength means that which cannot be broken. Strength means that which doesn't waver. Strength means they don't cry. No, strength does not mean that at all. Or strength can mean different things. Let me help you understand. So, fragile simply means that which can be broken, like that egg, easily broken. Stone, you can chip at it, but you need a lot of strength. Water, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot break water. Water doesn't scar, but give it a little heat and it will evaporate. Fragile means that which can break away. Robust means that which is unwavering, that doesn't change at all. It doesn't get affected. Like the stone. You can do anything to it that but probably its nature won't change. Anti-fragile is none of these inanimate things. Anti-fragile is us human beings. Ask yourself how many breakups you have lived through, how many failures and rejections you have lived through, how many nightmares you have lived through. You have lived through them. It doesn't mean you won't get scared. It doesn't mean you are not afraid anymore. It simply means that with every rejection, with every failure, you have grown stronger. Unknown to you or known to you, you have lived through the experience. That is what Nassim Taleb calls it as anti fragile, that which grows stronger with failure. It becomes better with rejection. It becomes better with stress. You can stress it, but it'll only learn and grow from it. While Nassim Taleb talks about anti fragile as a systemic, social kind of a perspective, I'm trying to give it a psychological angle, trying to make it very individual and human. So, anti fragile does not mean that you don't cry. Anti fragile does not mean that you're not scared. Anti fragile simply means that with every stressor, you get better, you grow, you get stronger. Or, in other words, if it doesn't break you, you get stronger. And if it breaks you, you become a different you. You make yourself anti fragile. You reinvent who you are. Keeping this approach in mind, I'm going to present to you a few ideas in a matter of the minutes that I have with you. Like the salad in this picture, pick whatever it is that you think is relevant to you. Some of them you might actually be doing, but you may not know that this is what you're doing. So when you identify it, remember it. And when you remember it, remember to use it the next time you remember the word stress. The next time you see a stressor, use this idea. Many of us know how to lose weight. Only some of us actually lose weight because it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. So remember to identify and apply. So, what is the first idea I would like to introduce to you when it comes to dealing with a stress? The first idea is check. Check whether the stressor is in your control or it's not in your control. To help you understand this idea, I would want you to look at these two columns of words: success, failures, reciprocation in relationships. You really love someone, will they love you back? Reputation, you have really worked hard at creating a performance. So, the reputation that you have, the image that you have in society, circumstances that you usually come across that you can never predict, like the pandemic. The other column has words like effort, desires, feelings, thoughts, actions, attitude. By now, you would have realized that all the blue words are united in its theme. And the theme is they are all external to you, they are outside of you. Whereas effort, desire, feelings, all these words are inside of you. Why am I saying this? Because the first thing that you need to ask yourself when you're facing a stressor is this in my control or is this not in my control? And many a times this is not the easiest to answer. Think about it. Which of these words do you think you can actually control? Take a moment to read through them. If you have come to realize that all the blue words, because they are external to you, you cannot control them, then you're right. You can never control them. You can put in your effort all the time, but you can never control whether they succeed or fail. You can really, really love a person, but never have the insurance and the guarantee that they will love you back. You can really work hard at creating a fabulous performance, yet people can question your reputation. You can really try hard to be prepared for every situation, and yet the circumstance can throw a googly at you. You will realize that only the red words are in your control. This idea was concretized better in this philosophical term called Stoic dichotomy of control. Stoics are Greek philosophers who realized this, that many a time people are frustrated because they try to control what they can't and they never control what they can. So people will end up saying things like, you know what, I really, really love that person. Then why did that person not love me? And they will be frustrated instead of accepting that I can love, but I can't make another person love. All those Bollywood and Hollywood movies, unless you have a production house behind you, you can't get a person to fall in love with you. It's their power of will. So the Stoics made a very clear distinction. They simply said, look at your body, starting with your body and everything that lies outside of it, including your body. Why did they say body? Because ask yourself, did you control the kind of body, the genes that you got? You can really keep your body healthy and fit, but can you make it immune to injury and infection? Can you really work hard and keep yourself from aging? No. Age will take its toll, infections will take their toll, injuries you cannot predict. even if you have the fittest body because of discipline, you can not always keep it in that shape. And beginning with your body, everything outside of it, the other person, the external circumstances, the society, the world, the war, you can't control. You can only control what lies within you. And by within you, the Stoics were referring to your thoughts, your feelings, your desires. You cannot make another person fall in love with you, and therefore you should ask the question to yourself, should I continue to love the person who doesn't seem to respect my emotion? That is in your control. So the first step that you do is ask yourself, is this in your control or not? From there, the next step is adjust your attitude. And what do I mean by adjust your attitude? Many people, when they are really, facing a glorious defeat, and the reason why I'm saying a glorious defeat is because we are we don't attempt small things in life, right? We attempt big things in life. So big things come with bigger problems. So when we are facing something like that in life, people often wait for a silver lining, for a break. Don't wait. Instead, create your own hope. And when I say create your own hope, many of you will think, oh, I need to think positive. The kind of positive statements that people nowadays make in pop culture has nothing to do with positivity. It's in fact wishful thinking. For example, look at these sentences. Nothing bad will happen, everything will be fine. You have worked so hard, I have a feeling you will succeed. Good always happens to good people. I hope there are no obstacles and everything happens smoothly. Think positive and everything will be fine. Very well intentioned people, including ourselves, would have made these statements. But they all have one error, and that is they are crossing over the line of control. They are telling you, they are making a promise to you that if you do things right, right things happen to you. When has ever that happened in life? That you do the right things and right things follow. So, positivity is not about what happens to us. Positivity is about how we view what happens to us. So, like the Stoics say, draw the line of control. Don't try to control what is happening to you, control what you can do with what is happening to you. And when you have to talk about how to approach something negative, something stressful that is happening to you, if you wish to conquer this stress, if you think this stress is good for you, then the first thing that you need to do is to keep hope alive. This entire idea of hope was given a different turn and a very interesting conceptualization by this psychologist called Martin Seligman. He said that optimism is not about hoping for good things to happen. Optimism is about being hopeful when adversity strikes. Things have gone wrong, it is shattered. You're looking at what is shattered, you're standing there, and you're still saying, I can do something about it. That is being hopeful. So, what does hope do? It works like a shock absorber. Apparently, the most expensive of cars, if you put them on Indian roads, they may not necessarily survive because, Indian potholes. Yet, if they have the best shock absorber, your rides are going to be smooth. So it's not about speed, it's not about power of the engine. It's about when you go wrong, do you have the ability to absorb the shock? Do you have the emotional stamina to take on the shock? Hope does that for you. It is like an emotional shock absorber. When you feel dejected, it pushes you up. When you feel like you want to let go, it pushes you out. So create hope. How is it that you can create hope? In fact, this man, Martin Seligman, came up with a neat formula for it. That neat formula can be very easily understood. I will introduce you to this formula in this lecture, but I will also encourage you to go and read about him and about the idea that he calls learned optimism. So, what is that idea? Just read these two sentences. This always happens to me. I don't know how, but I seem to have a knack for getting myself into trouble. Now, this one thing gone wrong will ruin everything for me. Look at the next sentence. It had to go wrong now. Such bad luck. At least I got to know right away. I can still save the rest. Just reading these lines will create a different feeling in you. You will understand just by reading it or just by listening to me that one makes you pessimistic whereas the other keeps you hopeful. If you ponder a little more about it, you will realize that there are certain words in these sentences that actually create pessimism and certain words that create hope. So, the words that create pessimism in the first statement is this always happens to me. I do everything right and yet I don't get it. I am the reason why things go wrong. And everything I've worked for gets ruined. Whereas in the other sentence, it has gone wrong now. It's bad luck. It's not me, it's bad timing. Some things have gone wrong for sure, but others can be saved. So, this way of talking was listened to by Martin Seligman when he was doing his research. He heard people who had gone through economic depression in his country, and by studying them, he realized which ones will go through this depression and emerge, and which ones will get stuck there. And his predictions were right. He understood that there is a pattern in which people spoke. And that pattern is when if something goes wrong, if something goes bad, if you make that bad thing permanent, it always happens. If you make it about yourself and this magnet for bad luck, if you make it about everything, not just one thing, everything will go wrong, then you spread pessimism. You lose hope. Instead, do exactly the opposite. When something goes wrong, depersonalize it. I mean, I did what I had to do, it was just bad timing. Make it temporary. It's not all the time, it is this time, it is some time, it is not all the time. Make it specific. This one, these things, not everything. So, if you remember this pattern, you will be able to convert or rather be objective about what is going wrong in front of you. Because clearly ask yourself, how much can you control? And if you remember the Stoics' philosophy, you will realize that you do not necessarily control the circumstance. You might influence it, but you can't control it. You have to face the consequences of your actions, but you cannot control the consequences of your action. So, in a way, it's simple common sense that when something goes bad, don't make it permanent. Nothing can be permanent because we are not permanent. Our life is not permanent. Then how can that be? Don't spread the one bad thing or two bad things or 10 bad things into 100. It can never be everything. Absolutes don't exist. And it cannot just be about you. The world doesn't revolve around you. There are other factors that contribute into creating the circumstance that you are in. So don't make it just about yourself. When you do this, you create hope. Not magical thinking, not wishful thinking, not waiting for a white knight in shining armor to come rescue you. You actually are simply creating hope. From here, we will move on to the third idea. So, first, you understand whether you can or you can't control the stressor. Second, you understand how to create hope. Next, you need to cultivate a growth mindset. Again, this in popular culture is very interestingly understood. When you say growth mindset, people again try to think that, oh, this means that I can become anyone I want, I can become anything I want. Sorry, you cannot become anyone you want. I can diet all I want, I can exercise all I want, I can't be Deepika Padukone. I can't. Growth mindset simply means you understand that your abilities can grow with effort. That's all. To help you understand this idea better, look at these three pictures. If I have to ask you, hardworking, which one of this picture looks like the person is working hard? Most people answer the first left hand corner where the person is sweating it out and biting the pencil in frustration is the one who's working hard. The other seem, it's an easy ride for them. Then, if I ask you, who is successful? You might say the one at the end, who's smiling, who's enjoying, who looks all fine, who seems like they are in the groove. But in fact, growth mindset says that most of us, if not all of us, start from this frustrating picture on the top corner and then journey down to the ease in the groove picture at the bottom corner. Growth mindset says that if you believe that your abilities grow with effort, I may not be Deepika Padukone, but I can be the best that I have been in my life in terms of fitness, then yes, you can do that. This idea was conceptualized by this lady, another psychologist called Carol Dweck. She said that she observed it in herself as a professor at Stanford University. She was afraid of failure. You might have heard this phrase, fear of failure. Why is it that people fear failure? Because many a times people think that if they fail, people will find out that they are stupid. And she says the reason why people have this fear of failure is because they think their performance is a reflection of their potential. That is, if I get A plus, then I'm an A plus student. If I get a C and D, then I'm a C and D student. So, what Carol Dweck says is it's far from reality. Our performance is a reflection of what we do, not our potential at all. So, don't confuse the performance with your potential. The more you practice, the better mentoring you get, the better your performance becomes. So, your potential is unseen. The more practiced effort, deliberate practice you do, your performance will improve. The better coaches, mentors, teachers you speak to, the better you will get at performing. So, Carol Dweck said she conducted this simple experiment with kindergartners. She divided the kindergartners, the youngest of the children who attend school, into two groups. And she gave them puzzles, jigsaw puzzles where you have to put down a big picture broken into smaller pictures together to make the big picture again. So she gave these puzzles to kindergartners, and when one group, let's call them group A, solved it, she would say, my God, you guys are Einsteins. Look how fast you did it. You're so intelligent. You're a genius. You're the best. How smart you are. She made them think that their performance were who they are. She wasn't praising them for what they did. She was praising them for who they became for what they did. Next, the group B. So, group B, whenever they made a puzzle well, she would tell them, that was good thinking. I saw you were sweating it out and you were really working hard at it. My God, you just didn't give up. You know, the clock kept ticking, but you didn't give up. You waited until the last picture fit in. Excellent. What effort. Fantastic. She didn't confuse them for their performance. She separated the process from the person. The next time you are trying to deal with a stressor, you understand what you can control about it. You have created hope in yourself. Give yourself reinforcing talk. Don't make yourself a failure. Make yourself a perceiver. Don't make yourself a genius. Make yourself someone who is thought oriented or detail oriented. Make it about the process. Don't make the performance about you. Similarly, when you're talking to people, don't make them feel great because they did something fantastic. Instead, identify what they did and just comment on that. That was interesting how you thought. Oh, that was stupid what you said. No, that was interesting how you thought. Or that seems like a thoughtless statement. You don't make it about the person, you make it about the process. So the next time you fail, the next time you're stressed, don't say, I'm an idiot to have got stuck here again. Tell, I need to think this one through a little better. Let me understand what I understood from my last attempt at solving it. What different thing can I do now? It's not about you, it's about the process. So you understand what you can control, you have created hope. Now you're cultivating growth mindset. That is, you realize that if you increase your effort, surprisingly your abilities grow. And your abilities are not your performances. Your abilities are unknown. The more you work at it, the better performer you become. But be realistic. You can work hard and be the best at who you are or the best that you can reach. That may not necessarily be the best in the world, but it is the best of you. The next tip. The next concept is about improving emotional stamina. I often ask this question to my students, and this is something that stayed with me from my life as a psychology student and even otherwise. I ask them, if you were not afraid, what things would you do in life? If you were not afraid, if you didn't have the ability to feel fear, what would you do? If you didn't have the ability to feel anxiety, what would you do? And many of them tell things like, I would go and ask that guy out, or I would go and tell my love, or I will go and write that exam, or I will go and give that interview, or I will go and take that class, or I will try to take that another class or a different exam. So they start talking about dreams more hopefully when you remove the emotion of fear and anxiety. That means somewhere our feelings become a big obstacle to what we want to do. If not for the anxiety of facing failure, of facing our stress, the frustration of defeat again and again, how many of us would not persevere? So, the next segment is about this idea of feelings. The feeling that comes to you when you have to experience stress repeatedly in life. And it is the reality. We will experience stress in life. It could be positive, it could be tolerable, normative, expected, it could be completely unexpected, and sometimes it could be toxic. So, the first thing that lets us know that we are not in a good place is our feelings. The most often associated feeling when you're trying to deal with stress is frustration. Oh my God, not again. I can't take this. I just can't deal with this again. It's like we are throwing a tantrum. Our kids, like my 5 and 7-year-old kids, do it. And I understand as an adult, I do it. It's like we are throwing a tantrum for someone to come and calm us down and say, don't worry, everything will be fine. But as an adult, you don't have that choice because everything will not be fine. You have to make everything fine. You will have to make. And how? You have to learn from the nursery rhyme of Itsy Bitsy Spider. You remember that nursery rhyme? That spider just didn't give up, no matter how many times it was washed out. It kept getting washed out, but it could not be stopped from climbing up. It controlled what it could. It's climbing up. It probably cultivated a growth mindset that if I am climbing this for the fourth time, it cannot be as hard as the first time. It should actually get easier. So maybe it climbed up faster. You can laugh about the spider analogy I'm giving you, but I think you're getting the point. And finally, maybe by the 10th time, it got there. Ask yourself, if you had the ability to persevere through your frustration, tell me which of your stressors will remain a stressor. Now, this idea of frustration and emotion being something that you create inside you was given by this psychologist called Albert Ellis. Now, this grand old man, it's a very interesting story I'll tell you about him, said that you create your feelings. Feelings don't come to you, you create them. And you create them by the way you think. The story I want to share about him is he said that one of his nightmares was being rejected by women he wanted to ask out. And he wanted to test his theory. His theory was I am creating my emotion. If I give myself a reason to live through my emotion, then I'll be able to create a newer emotion. So, in fact, he subjected himself to this experiment. He actually sat in Central Park in New York where he worked and he asked out 100 women. He had to ask out 100 women because 100 women rejected him. And he realized that yes, it was difficult, yes, it was painful, but you know what? It was not heartbreaking, it was not strangulating, it was not suffocating. He could live. When women said no to him, he could live through that. It was not as nightmarish as he made it out in his head, in his imagination. He could actually live through it. So he realized that your emotions cannot kill you. Your emotions are simply indicators like they are on a car's dashboard. It tells you what is happening, but they all are your perceptions. So the next time you're facing a stressor and you say, I can't take this, it's so difficult, I can't get my plans to fail again, instead try saying, I can't control my plans failing, but I can control my trying. I can learn how to deal with this difficulty. I may be doing something wrong I don't understand. I can't control the consequence of what is happening, but I can control my effort and my attempt at trying. And the reason why you really want to stand it is because whatever it is that you're trying is valuable to you. It makes sense to you. I have a typical Indian body type, which means I'm chubby, I'm not exceedingly tall, and I wanted to learn a dance form that expected you to be thin and tall. I'm talking about the dance form called ballet. And I tried it at a very wrong age. I tried it as a 26-year-old woman. Very wrong age to go in. Thankfully, I had a teacher who didn't think so. She helped me realize that if I really wanted to learn ballet, I could. Nothing would stop me. Maybe I couldn't look as beautiful as the rest of them. Maybe I wouldn't look as elegant as the rest of them. But I could do ballet. And I did. As I said, I didn't look like Deepika Padukone, but I looked my best. She helped me get there. Every time I failed, I had flat foot, I had the wrong weight. She only reminded me that Soumya, you can control your effort. Do you see meaning in it? Do you see purpose in it? And my answer was yes. I wanted to dance. I wanted to know how it felt when you leapt. I wanted to know how it felt when you split. I wanted to know how it felt when you looked so beautiful. I wanted to know. Then she said, who's stopping you? I'm not stopping you as a teacher. The dance floor doesn't stop you as a floor. The music doesn't stop playing. Go on, find out. And I did. So ask yourself, if you're repeatedly facing a stressor and you're failing, what if you want to persevere? Why? Why is it helpful for you? What is the meaning that you're trying to discover here? How is it valuable to you? And if you find your answers, and you need to find your answers, I can't give you that answer. I know what dance gave me, I can't give that to you. You have to find your answer as to why you want to persevere. And every time you want to give up, remind yourself of that answer. I can stand it because I see my meaning, I see my value, I see my purpose. From here, the last idea I want to tell you. I'm sorry. This last idea is something that many motivational speakers out there I don't think talk enough about. It's lovely to achieve. It's wonderful to go after the world, go after your dreams and get what you want. But sometimes you just have to stop. You have to rest. You have to recover. Like those rubber bands. If continuously you feel you're driven, you're running after one thing, after another thing, after another thing, then maybe you're not resting enough. You have to find a balance between work and recovery. Many a times, I'm able to help people understand this balance through this story. We started with the story of the moth. We will conclude with the story of two drops of oil in a spoon. So, just like me and you, there were people who wanted to learn, who wanted to know what's that thing in life which makes life beautiful and fantastic and purposeful and meaningful. They were curious what life is all about. So, one such student was told that there is this teacher, and when you know this teacher, when you meet this teacher and this teacher accepts you will understand what life is all about. So, people like you and me went away in that search, found that teacher, knocked at the door, and the teacher opened and said, yes, what can I do for you? And the student was like, I want to be your student. I want that thing that my dreams are made of. I want to achieve. I want to be happy. I want to conquer. Whatever is it that we all dream of. The teacher patiently listened and said, I appreciate if you have journeyed till here, I understand you're sincere. But now that you're here, I would want you to go nearby and see this beautiful palace. I want you to go do some sightseeing and come back. The student was like a little puzzled. I am coming to talk about life and dreams and conquering, and this person is saying there's a palace, go and see it. Okay, fine, I will. There must be some secret about it, some mysterious answer to it. I'll go. So the student started going towards the palace, and the teacher called the student back and said, wait, take this spoon with two drops of oil as you're walking the palace. Be careful not to spill the oil. The student was like us. Ah, this is the mystery. The teacher wants to test how much we can concentrate, how responsible and passionate we are. One drop? No, I will try. I will die. Not a drop of oil will come out of the spoon. That's how careful I'm going to be. I'm going to guard the spoon of oil with my life. And with all that rigor, The student walked towards the palace. What could have taken 2 hours took 6 hours because diligently the student was walking through to see that nothing spilled. The student came back, all flustered and tired and exhausted. It's like as though they were carrying 200 kilos. So when the student was back, the teacher looked at the spoonful of oil, took it and said, "Huh, good, well done. Huh, so how was the palace?" The student is like, "What palace? All the time I was looking at this 2 spoons of oil. What I will see the palace." The teacher is like, "Really? That's such a pity. You didn't see the palace at all, is it? It has such beautiful gardens, there are fantastic roses, there is a musical fountain, there are fabulous jewels out there on display. Come on, how did you miss the palace? It was right there. You know what? Go again and look at it." As the student turned to go, the teacher is like, "Hey, come back, take that." Again, 2 drops of oil in the spoon. The student took. But this time the student had kind of lost it. You know, how mad this teacher is. First says 2 drops of oil should be fine. 6 hours I spent. Then is asking how the palace is. Maybe the mystery is in the palace. I missed the point. Maybe it's not the oil that is important. The palace is important. The student went. This time the student was reckless. And 2 drops of oil can go for a hike. I'm going to enjoy the palace and the garden. Went through the garden, saw the roses, saw the flowers, saw the musical fountain, walked into the palace, saw the fabulous chandeliers, saw the ballroom, the jewelry on display. Fascinating sight. Felt completely invigorated, came back. As soon as the student came back and stood in front of the teacher is like, "Okay, where's the oil?" And the student is like, "Arey, you told me to see the palace and you're asking about the oil. Mad this teacher is. Earlier, when I was keeping the oil safe, the teacher asked about palace. Now I'm looking at the palace. The teacher is asking about the oil." And that's when the teacher said, "That's your secret to life. Whatever it is that you are trying to conquer, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, that's your palace. That's your aspiration. But when you're doing that, remember your 2 drops of oil. Remember to maintain the balance between your responsibilities, your aspirations, and your life. Remember to rest, remember to enjoy, and put in the effort. Now, that balance is very unique to all of us. For you, it could be more of palace and less of the 2 drops, or the 2 drops could be 2 liters, whatever it is. Your balance could be completely different from my balance. And that's why all psychologists say this: find out your way of striking the balance. And one of the best ways to understand to strike the balance is when you look in the mirror, don't just see how good looking you are or not how good looking you are, but are you smiling? Are you frowning? Do you look interested? Do you look tired? Check your emotions, check your feelings to understand whether are you balancing work and recovery. With that, I stop my presentation, and if there are any questions, I would love to take them.
Thank you, ma'am.